And I do a lot of research into media history. I've been very fortunate in terms of having a lot of great libraries. Speaking of great libraries, the Winchester Library, I just donated a copy of my new book to it, so if people want to see it, they're absolutely welcome
Boston
to.
Radio, 1920
to 2010.
Now, when
with
you were...
my cultural hero on the cover, Arnie Ginsberg.
Arnie from Maine, wow.
Yay. He's in Maine now. He worked, he was a Brookline boy.
Yeah.
Oi, a Brookline boy.
Now, when you were on my show last, it was about the women in radio.
Yep. I wrote Invisible Stars, A Social History of Women in American Broadcasting. I love that book, in 2001. And then in 2008, I published Icons of Talk, The Media Mouths That Changed America, which is a history of talk shows. So, like I said, I like to keep busy. I love to do research. And I'm also a pack rat, like I told you. And not just because, well, I like to save stuff. What I'm about is preserving the history of broadcasting, because broadcasting has affected so many people's lives. Like, for example, I'm holding in my hand a book that from a distance you probably are like, it says, listen in. Well, what this is an actual diary where somebody in 1924, 1925 sat at home every night with their headphones on, because that was the best and only way you could listen, really, and they wrote down every station they heard and what they thought of it. Absolutely. And they didn't have ratings then, they were just doing this for themselves, but they basically wrote down, you know, I heard such and such and here's what I thought of it, and I heard so and so, and boy, they can't sing, and you know, etc. And
read a little.
It's just it's fascinating stuff. Let's see if I can read. It's very, very light, and I don't have my reading glasses on.
Want to borrow these?
Do I want to borrow yours? No, that's okay. Let's see. It says here, heard a boy soprano and some pianist, not very good. Marching music, excellent. Glad I listened to it. So it's totally subjective, but I have visions of people just sitting there flipping there was no dial, you had to turn it, okay? And stay tuned, this is where the expression came from. You just tuned it and you hoped that it would stay on the station that you wanted it to, because signals drifted in and out. And suddenly...
It was all AM.
Yeah, and suddenly everyone's a critic. Oh, you know, marching music, I like that. Oh, that boy soprano? Oh, I don't think so. You know, and they're just like subjectively, they're writing letters to the newspapers. They're telling their favorite station, I want to hear more of this one or more of that one. And we forget how much radio meant to people. But even growing up here, you know, and there's people in your audience sitting there going, wow, I remember listening to fill in the blank. In my case, I remember listening to Arnie Ginsberg. I remember listening to Bruce Bradley or Dick Summer, Carl DeSuze, people like that. I even listened to Bob Clayton. My mother and father liked a station called WHDH, which today is a completely different station. But back then, it was sort of a middle of the road. It played a lot of big band stuff. And
wasn't it 850?
Yeah. So my folks turned me on to that kind of music, to the big band kind of stuff, and I sort of turned them on to rock and roll, which they thought was total noise. But personality DJs, for me, they were what I wanted to be. They just sounded like they were having so much fun. They sounded like they were just my best friend ever. And to this day, I was just talking to a famous consultant by email a couple of days ago named Alan Burns, and we're talking about how radio is a best friend to people. He just did this wonderful seminar, and I had the privilege of listening to him, and then I emailed. And it's 2011, and yet people still think of their favorite station as a best friend. And if radio wants to survive, and if they want to live, that's what they got to keep doing. They got to create radio stations where it's your best friend. When I listened to Arnie, I thought he was talking to me. I mean, yes, I understand he was broadcasting. He was talking to millions of people. But
Louie.
But to a kid sitting in Roslindale, a lonely kid, okay? And I turn on Arnie Ginsberg, I feel better. I love the music, I love the hits, you know? But he's having fun. And that's what I think really makes a great radio personality, is if they just sound like they enjoy what they're doing.
Woo-woo.
Yes.
Woo-woo.
Woo-woo for you.
Louie Louie.
Oh, remember Louie Louie? Remember when they tried to, like, Congress had a hearing about Louie Louie because they thought the lyrics were dirty? And they weren't. What they were is the Kingsmen recorded it in a garage, if I'm not mistaken, recorded it on a small label called Jordan Records.
Actually, it wasn't for the label.
Yeah.
They recorded it for a booze cruise.
Yes.
It was their demo for a booze cruise.
Oh, okay.
And
then it got
was
put out on
$50.
Jordan. Yes.
Jerry Denner, wasn't he the
yes,
guy?
yes.
He was a radio consultant like you, or a promotion man.
Yes.
And he decided to put it out, but
But the audio was horrible. It was muffled. You could hardly understand what they were. I love the record.
One of the greatest guitar solos for a pop song ever.
Da-da, da-da-da, da-da. And then, of course, everybody, the people in Congress who didn't like rock and roll anyway, and who were trying to shut it down with the payola hearings and everything, so they come back and they're like, we think this is a dirty song.
Every night at 10, 3 nights and days I sail the sea. I think of the girl
Think of the girl constantly. On that ship, I dream she's there. I smell the rose in her hair. But he sings it in kind of a bad Creole because it was a reggae song.
From the Wailers.
Yes.
By Richard Berry.
Absolutely. And you take muffled audio, and you take the fact that you can't understand half the time what rock songs are saying anyway. I mean, good golly, Miss Molly, you sure like to ball, things like that.
I'm sure at the end of it he says, get that broad out of here. I'm
I
sorry.
don't know. I don't think so.
But I know all the lyrics, pro and con.
Yeah, but what I do know is the song wasn't dirty, and it probably sold a bajillion records just on the fact that everybody thought it was.
It was a little mystery, and we all listened to it. We slowed it up. We played it at 33. My copy of it's white. We were obsessed with Louie Louie, and what were they saying? The FBI was obsessed.
Well, remember, supposedly there were certain songs, if you played them backwards, that whole backward masking thing with Led Zeppelin, and there was some song that was supposed to, say that Paul McCartney was dead or something like that.
Strawberry Fields Forever.
Yes.
No. Paul is dead. Miss him, miss him, miss him.
Yes.
That was on the White Album before,
I'm
before
completely
Blackbird.
blocking on which, yeah.
But Strawberry Fields Forever was I Buried Paul.
Yes. I Buried Paul, which they said was cranberry sauce. Cranberry sauce.
There were some eerie things around there. There was so much of it, it was eerie.
I think they were just playing with it, though. I mean, they knew that the rumors were out there.
Oh, so they added more.
Yes.
Why
this
not?
was the world before the internet, and rumors still spread just as fast. And some top 40 DJ came up with, we heard that Paul McCartney's dead, and, but why not play with that?
People
Talk
were
about selling
crying.
albums. Oh, I know.
Oh, we were in school, and I had the magazine, Is Paul Dead, and of course the Yesterday and Today cover, he's sitting in the trunk, and they certainly did play it up. But
well, even back in the old days, there were a lot of radio magazines, radio fan magazines, like this one is Radio Fanfare.
What year?
Okay, this is from 1933.
Oh my God!
Pristine condition, eh? 1933, and it has an article in it about Uncle Don, the children's pal. And there's an urban legend that Uncle Don supposedly said a bad word on the air. Totally a myth. Every children's show host, including Boston's Big Brother Bob Emery, was supposed to have, into an open mic, either dropped the F-bomb or said, that ought to hold the little that
so
kind of thing.
So that's what happened to Mark Parento.
Yeah, but I can't speak about Mark, but I can speak about children's show hosts. I don't think Mark ever did a children's show in the 30s and 40s, unless he's much older than I thought. And I know the stories about Mark. But I got to tell you that Uncle Don, and every station had an uncle, or a big brother, or an auntie, and they all read radio stories to the children. And people that thought this stuff was just so sappy and saccharine would start spreading rumors about them. Oh yeah, in their spare time they drink, or in their spare time they were arrested for.
As negative as that is, that was the era of no publicity is bad publicity.
Yep.
But that has changed.
Absolutely.
And
you could control the publicity a lot back then. I mean, here's a Radioland magazine from 1934 about Rudy Valley. And it's, the romance and loves of Rudy Valley. Now, there's nothing in here that his publicist
15
did.
cents.
Yeah. Oh, those were the days. There's nothing in there that his publicist didn't want in there. But the fans believed they were getting some secret revelation. They didn't realize that the photos were staged and, well, if you were gay back then, let's be honest, there were gay celebrities back then.
George Maharis,
yes,
66.
You couldn't talk about it, you couldn't mention it, and
Dr.
you were
Kildare.
you were always photographed with a beautiful woman, and she was supposed to be like
Raymond
your wife.
Burr.
Yes, she was your wife, and the publicist would make sure you were seen.
Rock Hudson.
Absolutely, and people didn't know. It was a much more naive time, and it was in some ways easier to manage your publicity because there weren't like 1,000 paparazzi. Oh, wait a minute, we saw you,
But it still works today. Like my Jodie Foster interview has got about 3,500 hits, which is good. But some gay guy on the web saying, is Jodie Foster gay, has got 250,000 hits.
I know.
It's absurd. And I look at it, it's like, here's the real deal. She's talking to me about Madeline White, Meredith Black, and we want to know this, and some guy doesn't even have her on the video. He's got 250,000.
I know. It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder.
So I could do that and upset all my guests. Donna Halper in Scandal.
Ooh.
10 radio station licenses in her
luck,
back
good
pocket.
Good luck finding scandal with me. I mean, I don't
in her
smoke, I don't drink, I don't do
she
drugs.
Has 20 radio licenses.
I wish. Yeah, it's just, I'm so boring. I'm serious. I really am.
And think about it, radio licenses in her safety deposit box.
Wish.
Who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, but
it's funny, too, because I've seen a ton of scandal. I really have, okay? I mean, let's be honest. You can't be in our industry without seeing all kinds of stuff. But if you choose
I know stuff people haven't seen, but...
I promised certain people I would never tell their secrets, and I haven't. And why would I? They're my friends. Now, do I agree with the way they're living their lives? Probably not. But in general, I really believe that you can surround yourself with people that support who you really are. Like a lot of people, and then that's not some airy-fairy kind of thing. I mean, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do drugs. I never have, okay? And a number of people in the industry know that about me, and they're fine with it. So when they knew I was coming backstage or whatever, they'd make sure they had orange juice for me, or they'd make sure they had a nice salad or whatever, and they were fine about it. And then there were a few people that were like, oh, what's the matter with you? I actually got fired from a radio station for not smoking weed. Okay, I'm the only person I know of who got fired from some place for not doing drugs.
Misery loves company. They don't want someone who's got something up on them.
Well, they said, well, you're making us uptight. I said, why? I mean, I don't do this stuff.
Discrimination.
Yeah, but that was back then, and go prove it. And, well, even back then with sexual harassment. I mean, a lot of those of us that were pioneering women in the industry, okay? Now, granted, there were women on the radio in 1920. Okay, here in Boston, the late, great Eunice Randall was the first woman announcer.
Medford, right?
Yep, 1919, 1920, okay? But in the 1960s, a lot of us who went into the industry at that point, we were kind of breaking into a, no offense, kind of an all-boys club, and some people didn't want us there. And some of us really did endure sexual harassment, myself among them. Now, if you say something, what happens? You never work again, because people are going, oh, you're a troublemaker and blah, blah, blah. So to some degree, you have to just kind of keep your mouth shut and just, it was really unpleasant. Things got better, but it took a while.
Well, in Billboard magazine, one program director said about a DJ that I just mentioned earlier that it was his age, and that was age discrimination. Yep. And he could have sued. And I said to him, why didn't you sue? And he goes, well, I want to keep getting work.
That's exactly the point.
And it's like, but they said in the trade that it was your age.
Yep. And it's your word against their word.
Well, not when it's in Billboard.
Somebody with a grudge said that, okay? Oh. So they just kind of turn it into, well, you're a disgruntled employee, and there you have it. But it really was. When we were growing up, it was a much more innocent time. Like, for example, we had our own TV guide. It was called TV Forecast. And here we have a picture of Shermfeller, yes, that Shermfeller, the guy that did the public address announcing for the Red Sox for years. But he was a former DJ, and he married Judy Valentine, who was a singer at a station where he was working back at a time when all radio was still done live. Now, at some point, they got divorced. It wasn't in the trades. No one asked about it. No one said anything. You know, can you imagine that today? When Howard Stern got divorced. Oh, it was in People. It was in Us. It was in the Inquirer.
Well, look at this guy, Wu. Is this the politician W.U.?
Yeah. He's from, I think, Washington,
not
D.C.
Got the axe quick.
And Anthony Weiner and a whole host of Republicans and on. Unfortunately, scandal does not know any political party. There are Republicans that have been in trouble. There are some Democrats that have been in trouble. People get into powerful positions. They just feel like the rules don't apply to them. But we live right now in a 24/7 culture where you have cable news and all of these magazines and the internet. And back then, as I said about Rudy Valley had a much easier time containing his public image. If Rudy Valley were living today and he saw some girl that he wasn't supposed to be seeing or something, but that's exactly where I was going. Let's say he saw some boy. You'd never hear the end of it because some, TMZ or one of these sites and people would be following him. It is almost impossible today to manage your image.
Well, when you put Tom Cruise in Google or Ryan Reynolds and all these major stars, these guy stars, some of them it says Tom Cruise gay, it's like 5 down. Or Ryan Reynolds gay, 6 down.
Yep.
But it's a big topic.
I know. And I sit here as your basic heterosexual, and I sit here and I go, why? Who cares?
Well,
if they are, they are. If they're not, they're not. Why do I care?
They want to care. They want ooh, what is that all about? They really want some kind of mystery. It's like a whodunit.
I think they vicariously want to catch people doing something wrong. I think that there are some people...
Even if it's not wrong, they want to make it wrong.
But in their mind, it's wrong, okay? For the people that are just pointing their finger, the ones that are, oh, you shouldn't be doing this and you shouldn't be doing that. And when they can catch someone that they think is so perfect and just watch them get torn down, we do this with athletes. We build them up and then we tear them down. And it's just this bizarre phenomenon where it's almost kind of, Schadenfreude, like I feel so much better because you're the one in trouble rather than me. And I don't understand it. I just don't.
I saw a movie last night that I have to review, and it can't be reviewed until next week. So I won't say the name of the movie, but one of the actors I just mentioned and another actor, they switch bodies. So much like Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin.
Oh, I know the movie you mean, and we'll remain it nameless.
Yeah, and they're in the shower. There's a shower scene, and of course, they're playing with each other's bodies, so the guy is just kind of like cleaning the other guy up because it's his personal body. It's just such a mind trip.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, but it makes sense. The movie made me a little uncomfortable. But I won't review it till next week.
I understand. But I'm looking here.
I'm no prude either.
I understand.
No, they just...
Hey, same way, I went to see a comedian last week who, again, will remain nameless because we work together and I don't want to seem like I'm insulting a particular comedian. Let's just, call him Fred, okay? So I go to see Fred, and, Fred's a real talented artist, but Fred works blue, and every other word is F this, F that. Now, I've been known to drop the F-bomb on occasions. I'm not going to tell you I haven't, but you get to a point where it's just like...
What we're hitting on is the cringe factor.
Yeah.
We're not prudes. But at a certain point, it's like you're in 7th grade.
Hello. That's exactly my point.
I have a lot of other things I'd rather discuss than the F word.
Yeah, and it becomes to a point where it's just gratuitous, okay? Like a lot of movies today.
Ashton Kutcher, Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
What is that movie?
Oh, I know the one you mean.
I reviewed it,
Yeah, and of course we'll both leave and then we'll think of the name of it. Don't you hate when that happens? But, we see a lot of movies also where it's like lots of violence, lots of wham bam sock 'em kind of, special effects, and no plot and no dialogue. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm glad they've got all these wonderful special effects. This gets back to my saying
it's not Friends with Benefits.
No, it's not.
But it's along those lines.
Yes. And I'm not a Luddite. I'm not saying, well, everything was better in the old days, because it wasn't. But I miss the days when you could actually go to a movie that wasn't necessarily a Disney movie, but that while it had adult content, didn't gross you out every 15 minutes. So I don't know, I keep thinking back to Jess Kane and announcers like that who were able to be cutting edge without necessarily being blue. And I'd like to have some kind of entertainment that doesn't make me sit there and go, is this supposed to be funny, or is this just like you said, 7th grade humor?
Well, we actually did have it Saturday night, which brings me to...
Aren't you glad I brought that?
Oh, that's wonderful. I can't wait for you
from
to...
From my personal collection.
Jefferson Airplane, B.B. King, Joshua Light Show, and it says something about The Who.
Yes, 1969. Those were the days.
And special guest stars, The Who.
Out in Tanglewood.
Tanglewood is amazing. So, if you think Jefferson Airplane has problems with each other, you should see the problems they have with us. Just before we got on the air, the founding member was on the phone with me because I work with Marty Ballin of the airplane, and I was saying, man, you should have been more forceful because you were so clean living and, you know, and had your head together. And he started explaining why you couldn't. I said, I stand corrected. But he told me about the problems. But this is no joke from RCA. If you think the Jefferson Airplane has problems with each other, you should see the problems they have with us. And they really did have infighting.
I know. RCA was trying to censor their lyrics. They were trying to censor their ideas. The real issue back then, and it became the defining issue for AM versus FM, was that AM wouldn't play controversial songs for a long time. Okay.
Wow, you got to scan this.
Happy to do it.
Wow.
So FM became the place where you could hear the real anti-war songs and the drug songs and the songs that spoke up on behalf of causes and issues, but AM was still doing, I lost my baby, bop bop shabop doo wah, and FM became the home where you could hear the long version of the song. AM, 3 minutes or forget it. I mean, they took, what was that, The Doors' Light My Fire, and they edited it down to 2 minutes and 52 seconds. Jim Morrison was beside himself. 2 minutes and 52 seconds, And so, a lot of the progressive rockers, which is what they were called back then, the underground bands, were furious with the labels because the labels are like, we want a hit single, and if your song is more than 3 minutes long, chop, chop, chop.
Donna, we've got about 7 minutes left, and then we're going to call Frank Dell'Istrito.
Okay.
And I want you to join in on Suddenly and in Talking Movies. This guy's a great biographer of Lugosi and classic horror movies. But we talk about the public domain movies we play at 9 o'clock on Friday nights here.
And I hope, dispelled the myth about Bela Lugosi not dying, holding the script. That was,
I think he was buried in his cape, though.
Right, he was buried in his cape, but I know there's an urban legend floating around that he died like holding the script to the Ed Wood movie or something like that, but he didn't.
And people, we're going to have the Bela Lugosi Festival we had over a year ago. In October, I just got the word. Frank Dell'Istrito knows more about Lugosi than many. So we're going to go movie for movie that we played last year before Frank joined the show. We're going to have him describing each movie. Isn't that great? I mean, what a treasure. This guy is so nice to us, calls in every week. As you are so nice to show up here. Great little studio, great people.
I love the place. I'm happy to talk radio. I hope I haven't been boring. I hope I've been even halfway interesting.
You can come back anytime you want.
Well, thank you.
Anything you want to talk about specifically, because we have, about 6 minutes more before we call Frank.
Well, one thing I want to talk about is how the record business has changed. Okay, I've talked a little bit about how radio has changed, about how the autonomy has been taken away from a lot of the local people. There are still stations that are live and local, and God bless them. I salute them for doing it. But I'm saying that it really is a big change where you have a small group of owners owning a large number of stations. The industry has gotten kind of timid about taking chances, and we've also seen big changes in the record business. When I was a music director, which I was for like 13 years, and then I was a consultant for 28 and hope to be again, we used to have the record promoters come in, they'd bring in their new music, they'd have fun with it, this and that. Now it all seems like it's just become a business. It's like, well, it's a certain number of spins on SoundScan, and it's 2.3 this and that, and here's how it's selling in this city. And I'm kind of curious, is it just my imagination, or is the fun gone out of record promotion?
Well, the records aren't manufactured well. Marty went in and made his own record on his terms, with no one breathing down his back, and then he gave it to me to go out there and put it out. I got him offers. He declined and put it out on his own. Now, we're going to go with one of the offers for the next album. So But he was doing everything on his terms. He's at that age where, I said, how did you make this masterpiece, Miracles? He goes, we just would go in and make records. We just turn the stuff on and do our thing. Miracles is one of the most finely crafted records.
Yes.
Sound, performance, production, everything. And
Today is one of my favorite songs. And the Surrealistic Pillow, that album, that could have been made yesterday.
we're doing the whole album live.
What a great album that is.
We're going out live with Surrealistic Pillow.
Totally a classic. Totally a classic.
3/5 of a mile in 12 seconds.
Some records just don't age very well. That one did.
Embryonic Journey, an instrumental.
Yep.
We're even talking to Hot Tuna in 2 weeks about a Hot Tuna Marty Ballin gig.
Really?
Or maybe putting them on tour. So this is all activity after the Esplanade gig. We just got into high gear. He's going to see Tuna. They love him. Marty stayed friends with everyone. Grace, Paul.
Yep.
So he's the one that everyone can talk to, which is really good. If PBS wants to say, hey, we want a reunion,
Now, is it my imagination, or was he not that involved in like the drug and the alcohol scene and this and that? My recollection is that there were a few of us. I wasn't the only one.
He wasn't, and there was a lot of animosity, so he bailed. And then they wanted him back, and he wrote the major hits for the first phase of Starship.
Yep. And the irony, of course, is that years later, when a lot of those people became clean and sober, they were like, wow, what did I throw away? I mean, there were some great people. And like
the ones that are alive, because some of it caught up to them. Even though they got clean, their bodies wore out.
Yeah, I mean, rest in peace, Amy Winehouse, 27 years old.
Well, you just told me Dan Peek died.
Yep.
I think I reviewed him on AllMusic. Go to allmusic.com, put in Dan Peek. He had a born-again Christian album.
Yep, he was. He died at the age of 60, and they still don't know the cause, but I'm sure it was nothing, rude, nasty,
They were a very
insolent.
clean guy. He was a born-again. He wrote All Things Are Possible.
Wrote a great Christian
song
called Doers of the Word. I mean, I consulted a couple of Christian stations, which is kind of amusing when you know that I'm really just happy to be Jewish. But hey, radio's radio, and if that's what people want in a market, then I want to do the best Christian station for them I can possibly do.
Whatever happened to Chris Christensen, who was his producer?
Yes,
remember Chris Christensen was supposed to be the next big thing.
Yeah, I know. Sure wasn't. Boy, there were so many. Someday we'll do a trivia thing about who the next big thing was supposed to be, like one-hit wonders. People that they had one hit, and everybody was, oh, you're going to be hearing a lot from this person. Sank like a stone. You never heard from them again. But I got to tell you, I feel bad about Amy Winehouse. I really do. I mean, I understand that she was a very self-destructive person, and a lot of people in our industry, sad to say, are self-destructive. But you still hate to see somebody that young die.
She had everything to live for. You got a few $1,000,000. You should be happy.
Oh, honey, addiction's terrible stuff. I mean, I have a master's in counseling, and I counseled people with addictions. It's horrible stuff. It really is. I'm so glad I stayed away from it, and I am so sympathetic towards her family, because by all accounts, they did all the right things. They did everything you were supposed to do. I know there's a tendency to finger point, oh, what kind of parents did you have? Seems like she had pretty normal parents. There's just no predicting it.
Well, Heath Ledger, one of the most brilliant acting performances I've ever seen. It's textbook. If I'm going to act in a movie, I'm going to watch The Dark Knight a few times just to see how he does that. Do you think he got it so high that that's how he was enabled? I don't think so. I think it was genuine talent.
Yep.
But I don't know why he had to do what he did.
I know. Well, I'll tell you, every day I wake up, and this is going to sound incredibly sappy, but seriously, every day I wake up, I'm really glad I'm alive. I'd much rather be here than some other places I could be.
You're a doer. You create.
That's about it. Sometimes you just got to get out there, whether you're depressed, whether you're frustrated, whether you're whatever. It's like, these are the cards I was dealt. How can I play them? And I'm going to play them as well as I possibly can. I hope I'm making a difference in somebody's life. I'm sure out there trying.
Go to donnahalper.com. See the new book. She has 5 books out. It's at the Winchester Public Library if you'd like to see it. Now, this is that publisher that does like the Woburn book and the Winchester book.
Yep, this is Arcadia Press. God bless them.
Down in, are they down in Washington or something?
No, actually, they're in South Carolina. They used to have a New Hampshire office. But Arcadia does local history. And they asked me originally to do a TV book. But then I got them to focus on radio. And it's been doing really well by the grace of God.
They asked you to do TV.
Originally.
But then you did radio.
Yep.
Is that like visual TV radio?
Absolutely.
Oh, so that's
Talking
why
furniture.
you're here.
Talking furniture.
That's why you're here. I see.
I'm here because
The
you asked
astro-
me. I'm here
right.
because you asked me.
TV, radio, and visual radio, so it's all manifested.
You promised me $1,000.
I did not. I did not, but we're having fun here. It's our first Thursday night.
It's like $1,000. I love this stuff. I love talking about radio.
We've got 9 minutes left of our first Thursday night show, and we've got Frank Delastrito, so we can wrap up this phase of it, but I want you to stay and chime in on the movies.
Okay.
Any other memorabilia you'd like to hold up? The
Oh,
book?
I got tons of it. I could go on for days, but
No, you got to come back. Mitch Diamond came in with a ton of posters.
well,
and
here's one that I love to show. This is a TV guide from 1956, and let's play trivia. If this were to come out today, what would be different?
he wouldn't have his hand in front of his face.
And you would never have him smoking a cigarette.
Oh, I didn't see that.
In fact, when his stamp came out, okay, because I teach media history.
Is it Humphrey?
That is the late, great Edward R. Murrow.
Oh, sorry.
And Edward R. Murrow, of course, admired by many of us, when he died, and he died from lung cancer, he was a 5-pack-a-day guy.
He and Rod
Wow.
Serling.
Yeah.
Wow.
When he died, they did a stamp in his honor, and by that time, everybody had kind of gotten into the health thing. Some people would say political correctness. Doesn't matter. Call it what you will.
The health
and
thing.
They airbrushed out the cigarette
Ah.
because he, like Serling, was just about never without a cigarette.
Not good.
So this is, the youth of America were exposed to this back then, but they're not exposed to it today. The stamp does not have it. Rest his soul.
Donna, it's so good to see you. You got to come in more frequently.
Well, my pleasure. I'm always happy to come in, and
We can have Bob Bidner come in. And
that'd be awesome.
let's talk about radio. My mic fell off.
I've got tons and tons of things that I could bring in. I have surveys from just about every top 40 station and from some of the other stations as well. If your listeners and viewers will just tell me, just shoot an email.
Hey, Frank.
Let us know who you want to talk about. I'll be happy to bring in some memorabilia about them.